Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Fran. In this channel, I share knowledge and practical techniques on trauma healing and everything about mental health. So today I wanted to share some things I've been personally very interested in, and I've been looking for answers all my life, I feel like, because I think it troubled me the most during my own healing, because I constantly feel this chronic shame within myself of not feeling good enough, and I feel like there's something wrong about me, because I think a lot of times I go through things that people don't go through, and I just have the feeling that I got picked out to go through those things because I caused them due to my own defectiveness. So I wanted to share the reasons why we would develop shame in the first place, and I think that really helps us untangle the fear and shame cycle. So let's jump right into it. So when we're talking about shame, how do we feel? How do we know that it's shame that we're feeling? I think shame is not a word so unfamiliar to a lot of people, right? Because we all talk about shame. But there's this chronic loneliness that we feel tied to the shame. We feel that we are singled out by the universe of good things, and only bad things happen to us. We feel like we attract bad things. When terrible things happen to us, instead of feeling compassionate like we would do for a friend, we would feel like, well, it's me, of course. No wonder this would happen to me. I always do this kind of thing. I always attract this wrong type of people, and I'm never going to have a normal relationship. I'm never going to be looked at in a normal way by people. When we feel like there's something terribly wrong with us, when we feel like we're defective at core, when we feel that we are being targeted by people, by things, by the universe, when we constantly feel like things are happening to us, that's shame. That's this deeply seated feeling that there's something wrong with us, like there's something terribly wrong with us, even though from the outside we look like we have it all together. We look like, well, there's nothing wrong with us. We feel like we have good titles. We finish school. We get a decent job. We are good-tempered people. Like, we are nice, seemingly from the outside. But only we know that we're incredibly lonely. So how does shame get developed? And why we choose constantly to self-shame ourselves? The number one reason is that shame is a trade-off for safety and survival. When we're children, our safety and our survival depend solely on the parent, on the caregiver, because without them, we cannot survive, we cannot live for another day. And the last thing that the child wants to believe is that their parents are not adequate, their parents are not reliable, their parents are not good for them. Because how scary would that be if you know that the only person that you rely on for life cannot provide safety for you? How scary is that? So what we always see that when bad things happen to the child, when bad things happen within the household, for example, the parents fight, maybe the father left, maybe the mom is cold and distant and unresponsive, and they may shame children's needs or emotions, the children would never believe that their parents are bad. They would only blame themselves. They would only choose to believe that, well, there must be something wrong with me that caused this to happen. So I'm defective at core, and I'm the bad one. And they would never believe that their caregivers are wrong, are bad. They would never do that. For example, my mom, she was very depressed and she was very sick because she solely depended on my father to provide some kind of assurance and value, because she has such a low self-esteem, sadly. But at that time, I couldn't believe that my mom wasn't capable when she's not responsive. When I seek for emotional closeness, when I seek to engage with her, when I seek protection and safety and guidance from her, she's always so cold and distant, and she would just walk away. She wouldn't say much, and she wouldn't even say or explain to me that what's going on with her, because she's kind of just bottled up like all her feelings, because she's used to deal with things, depression and pain, by herself. So she never showed those things to me. But from my perspective, I feel like I am too much for mommy. Like I have too much needs. I have too much emotions that I am burdensome to my mom. So growing up, I've learned to not show my needs to people because I feel like I'm gonna be a trouble for them. I don't want to be this burden to them because I feel like I'm not accepted. And the main reason is that there's something wrong with me. I'm too needy. I'm such a troublesome kid, you know. I just have this like gut feeling tells me that there's something wrong with you. So now that whenever like something bad happened to me, for example, relationship doesn't end well, for example, the boy left me, and I always conclude that this is my fault. I did something, or there's something terribly wrong with me that causes people to go away like they usually do. So the second reason I wanted to talk about is that when we're choosing shame, when we're choosing self-shame, even though it's not a conscious choice when we're children, but it does bring some benefits, which is some degree of control. When we blame ourselves, when we feel like it's our fault, we did something wrong, it potentially means that if we stop doing this, if we change, things could improve. Things would not remain this bad for us. So we feel like if we adapt, if we change, there's at least some senses of hope that this thing could be different. This happened to a lot of victims of abuse, because when we were being abused, we feel like it must be that I'm bad, I did something to cause this abusive behavior. So next time, if I change, if I stop doing this, I would not go through abuse anymore. And also, it's the same for sexual abuse. We feel like, well, we did something suggestive, we did something bad to cause this abuse. So if we change this, we will not be abused anymore. So as victims, we always blame ourselves because it brings us some sense of control, some false hope that things could improve, compared to utter helplessness and hopelessness. Maybe we caused mom and dad's divorce. Maybe I'm the reason that they are leaving, they are fighting. Maybe I'm the reason that they're not treating me well. So if I change, I behave well, it will not happen anymore. When I was a child, my mom was being mentally abused by my dad, and she was dying and she was suffering. Till this day, I blame myself. I should have read the cues. I should have known that my mom is depressed. I should have known that she's sad. I should have done something to make her happier. I should have done something to share her burden and to relieve her pain and suffering. Even though I was only 3 or 4 years old, and I was only 7 when she passed away because of cancer, because of the torture that my dad exerted on her. Till this day, I blame myself because even though consciously I know that there's nothing a child could ever do to stop that, to change that family dynamic. There's nothing I can do to change who my father was, but I still choose to have this blame on myself because the helplessness behind all that, behind the terrible things that happened to my family, is unbearable. Like, I couldn't deal with it till today. The reason that I'm making this video is because I started to realize how universal this shame is, how universal that people don't feel good enough. And I'm not saying that everybody comes from this broken family. Some of the parents are really loving. They are doing everything they can to bring warmth, to bring love to the child, to take care of the child. But as human beings, we have flaws. Even though everybody means good, but we're doing the best we know, we're doing the best we can. We could just didn't intentionally try to hurt someone, but this can cause some kind of bad feelings within us. And that's how shame gets passed on from generations to generations. And that's how, like, why it's so important to realize there's a cycle going on here. And we need to really understand this, to be conscious of this, to be aware of this, to avoid passing on to our next generation. And also it hints cure when we are finally open to the possibility that maybe we didn't do anything wrong. Maybe there's nothing wrong with us. It's nothing personal against us. Maybe it just happened. We don't have to put a definition to it that we're bad, that something happened to us because we attract bad things constantly, you know. So I hope this video is helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.